180,000 subscribers. I am genuinely shocked and humbled, as far as the best person ever can be humble, that so many of you people would click a button for little old fat old me. And to celebrate such a momentous occasion, I decided to be super lazy and make an AMA. And then 300 and the rest of you decided to participate, making this actually quite a lot of work. So thanks for doing that, doing what I asked of you like a bunch of bastards. But seriously, thanks everyone who bothered. I read every single one and I'm already regretting my decision. And so, question the 0 is, what is your favourite whiskey? Because, well, unsurprisingly, it was asked a lot. My bog standard response is, yes, because obviously. But if you want to know what I tend to pick for a decent drink, it's Bullet Bourbon. It's tasty and relatively inexpensive for its quality. I like it. Now on to the proper questions. On the SCP scale, exactly what level of cosmic horror do you classify as? Do you honestly think I would use the metrics of petty, insignificant hoomans? I am my own cosmic horror, and I will not be put into any kind of box, whether by legitimate or non-legitimate fictional government agencies. What belief did you most strongly hold before having to give it up thanks to evidence? Honestly, it's a little hard to pick, but what I will say is I'm constantly discovering things that I simply held to be true because some jackass told me one time and I had no reason to question it, and it turns out to be absolute nonsense. The important thing is to find those beliefs and make sure that you crush the life out of them so you don't idly repeat them to someone who then thinks you're an idiot forever. And I try to do that every day. Out of all the content that you've made videos of, which one pisses you off the most? Believe it or not, none of them really piss me off. At least not anymore, regardless of how upset or angry the sick man sounds. As I age, I find that anger is rarely useful in figuring out the accuracy of claims. However, there are a number of ones I do think are genuinely dangerous, most of them to do with physical or mental health. Making stuff up for them is never going to be a good time. What did you do before YouTube was your full-time gig, and how did you feel the moment you realized you could make it your career? A lot of stuff, actually. I've been a barman / waiter, a graphic designer, the effective IT and network manager of a very small school, an eBay buyer and seller, a bouncer, I've stewarded an event or two, and probably a bunch of other shit that I can't remember. And when I realized I could do YouTube as a career, I thought, thank non-existent Christ, I don't have to do all that garbage anymore. How many times have folks successfully found the thing they are not to touch? 0. It's quite amazing how obedient you all are. Good hoomans. Are you planning on someday making a live action video every once in a while like you did back at the start of your channel? Well, I never made any live action videos, but I did make short clips. And planning? Yes. Will it happen anytime soon? Probably not. The live action stuff started when I was only making one video a week, and then I decided a few years back to do 2 a week. And while at first I kept up with the setup, including green screen, cameras, lighting, etc., which was a huge embuggerance, and it became harder and harder to keep up with. So that's when I chose to make Sick more animated, so to speak. However, if I can achieve my 5-year goal of growing the channel and more importantly my income enough to buy a house with a dedicated recording space, they will begin again in earnest. How long does it take you to go from finding a video to writing a script, recording and uploading it, with all the steps you take in between? So my workflow goes thusly: find a video, write script, record script, edit audio, mark video timeline for potential jokes, edit visuals including any new funnies that I thought of, upload, publish at some point in the future. This can take a near random amount of time, mostly due to finding a video to cover. Sometimes I've seen one I want to talk about days before my workday. Sometimes I'm freaking out running out of time on the writing day. Because I choose videos based on whether or not I have something to say and if I feel I could make a good video. But in total, it takes a couple of days to turn around a video. Unless it's a collab, that shit can take weeks. Why do you think I do them so rarely? And publishing is generally done about 2 weeks after the fact. At the moment, I'm hoping to increase that time so I can have a holiday. I've edited this one a little. If you could choose which god or pantheon were real, fictional, or the other kind of fictional, which would you pick? The Elder Scrolls, specifically Daedric Princes, specifically Sheogorath. That guy has some bold ideas, most of them involving cheese. 9 is some quick fire questions, so f*** it. Is your day job something in IT or a similar field? No, but I do like tech. Do you have kids? Yes. Do you write aside from video scripts like short stories or poems? I contribute to Spoon Staff Stories, Mrs. Six animated series, where I do all the voices. And some of the writing. When will Mrs. Sick get her armor for on-screen appearances? She could just use mine. Am I asking too many questions? Maybe. Coke or Pepsi? Pepsi Max. Favorite crisps? Barbecue knickknacks. 8. Old enough to know better. If commercial space flights become a thing and cheap enough in your lifetime, would you want to go into orbit? Fuck no. Remember when Pluto was a planet? Yes. Overmining is such a tragedy. What was the point of these again? Yes. What kind of games do you play, and what genre do you usually prefer? Single player, hint hint. What thing am I not supposed to touch? I've been touching so many things and your warning has me concerned. You should be, it's probably already too late. Number 10. What's your favourite / most hilarious terrible theist hot take? God, there's so many to choose from, and honestly it's not a specific thing, but it's what I try to achieve in all of my videos. That is, refuting someone using their own logic and arguments. So in that sense, all of them. If you had to be locked in an escape room with either Matt Powell, Ray Comfort, or a human-sized version of the blue guy from Spirit Science, which would you pick? All of them, and then I would swallow the key so that we'd all starve and I would have made the world 4 times better. Worth it. How many raccoons do you think you could stuff into a Royal Mail sack? All of them given enough time in a blender. Of all the videos you have done on various different crackpots, have any ever made a complete turnaround and become relatively sane? I have no idea, and I would not claim to be the cause if they had. However, I have had people tell me that they found my content helpful in deconstructing various ideas, partly because my use of humor can be disarming, and my demonstrations of the ridiculousness of some ideas help some people to come around. So that's pretty cool. How did this become a thing, and did you expect it to grow so quickly? Also, I sense a bit of a D&D geek. What's your favorite board game? I have no idea how I managed to get anywhere with this, although quickly is subjective. In my opinion, I have done the slow and steady thing, growing gradually over the years without the kind of insane growth some people get, and I think that's helped to ground me as a person. It still feels like I'm just some asshole who makes the videos that a couple of people watch, but if I think about it, I realise at least 2 more than that. Again, that's pretty cool. Also, Mrs. Sick is the D&D nerd. Personally, I don't have the time or patience for board games, let alone the fact that even the more popular ones bore the living shit out of me and my ADHD-addled brain. Do you have a favourite woo to debunk, like Flat Earth, Hans Wormhat, Spirit Science, etc.? No, not really. What I do like is questions 4 type videos, because it gives me a chance to flex my noggin in a different way. I'm having a pretty good time with this one, for instance. What sort of further education do you have and how far did you pursue it? I have qualifications in bar work. Now you'll have to figure out if I'm making that up because haha Sir Six a drunk lol. What's one artist you enjoy listening to that might surprise people? As an, I assume, known metalhead, I guess Elderbrook or Easy Life, and probably less surprising would be Mark Rebillier. He does sing about sex a lot. Did you ever attend any church when you were growing up? I did, and much like board games, it bored the crap out of me. I also went to Sunday school, although I was eventually kicked out for asking questions, and doing so apparently upset the Sunday school teacher. I felt kind of bad at the time. I now realise it was bullshit manipulation tactics. Because if a child asking questions and being a bit dismissive genuinely makes you upset, maybe you shouldn't teach kids anything. If you could have any superpower, what superpower would you have and why? Teleportation always sounded cool, and yes, it would be relative to the planet. I'm not going to accidentally warp into space. I would mostly use it to acquire goods and services, and maybe get a job for some extremely overpriced instant delivery service. People will pay wild amounts of money to not have to wait for something. And holidays would be whenever I feel like it, which would be nice since I haven't had one in nearly 20 fucking years. And no, that's not an exaggeration. Did you ever have a this guy/girl can't be for real, he/she must be a trial moment with a content creator? Many times, but not because they were too bonkers, but because they literally said they were a troll. Usually in an attempt to call the people who believe the idea stupid at the end of the video, or whatever. Usually when I start to think this seems a bit mad, I will look ahead and go check out their content to see where they seem to be coming from. It saved me embarrassing myself a few times, and it's how I know that that one guy that you are convinced is definitely trolling probably isn't. I do this for a job. Maybe assume I know something you don't, eh? Out of the 3 attributes that you always claim to possess, being handsome, smart and good at the sex, wait a minute, when the f*** did I ever claim to be smart? I have an entire disclaimer explicitly stating otherwise. So many people think that my catchphrase is handsome, smart and good at the sex. It's handsome, famous and good at the sex. And we all know that famous people are in no way guaranteed to be smart. Many of us are absolute morons, and some of us aren't even really famous. Since you and your wife have both said you have social anxiety, how the hell did you meet? Well, I don't know who this wife is, but the woman who lives in my house definitely has social anxiety. I, on the other hand, would never have said that, as I'm great with socializing, I just don't like people very much. And to answer how we met, alcohol. They don't call it a social lubricant for nothing. There are a few variations of this one, so I picked one that gets to the heart of it. What got you into counter-apologetics/debunks? Well, if I didn't say YouTube itself had something to do with it, I would be lying. There are loads of creators I used to watch back in the day, and it was something that I wanted to do for years until one day I decided to start talking about things I thought I could add my 2 cents to, and eventually moved more to the hard sciencey side, mostly because opinions just make everyone mad at me. But even before the YouTubes, I would talk shit with street apologists, and I would try to make pithy one-line mic drops to walk away to, because I've always been an asshole. My favourite of that time was agreeing to "God helps those who help themselves" by saying, "Guess that's why criminals tend to do so well." Hell, I thought it was funny. The guy I was talking to, on the other hand. No matter how many times I've listened to your opening theme music, I cannot for the life of me decipher what the 2 sung syllables are. I thought it would be pretty obvious what my intro says. I mean, seriously, you can't tell. It's obviously sausage. In a typical week, how often does the cat interfere with video production? Interfere? Never really, but she does come in to shout at me sometimes. What did you see yourself doing when you were younger, and are you happy life has turned out this way compared to what you thought you wanted before? When I was a micro knight, I always wanted to be, and this is just a title I made up as a child, so forgive me, a video games graphic designer. Of course, then I found out video game making at all is like work, and f that. I also wanted to be an actor because of what a drama queen I so obviously am, and frankly, if you would have told me this is what I would be doing as an adult, I wouldn't have been too surprised by anything other than any amount of success. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. If a tree falls in the forest and nobody else is around to hear it, is Jay Dyer still sitting in a hole? Yes, and it is filled with the salty tears of his fans constantly bitching at me whilst adding literally nothing to any conversation ever. What's the video you're most/least proud of? Least? All of the ones on this channel. Most, and I'm not trying to constantly shill, but the ones on Spoonstaff Stories. They are good and I get to flex my acting muscles, which is really fun. I'm very proud of them. Please go watch them. Okay, another multi-question, but I'm only going to do a couple of them. Did you know you're actually somewhat known and liked in the pagan communities? And what are your views on anti-theism? Did I know that? No. That's also pretty cool. And if any of them are watching, hi. How do I feel about anti-theism? It depends. There's the positive atheism variety, as in God does not exist. I think that's silly. If you mean people who think religion is always bad, I can see why people can come to that conclusion. And I can understand why they might be generally vitriolic about it. I just don't ascribe to such a worldview. Especially when it comes to the religions you keep to yourself. If it makes you happy, why the f*** would I care? These two are right next to each other for me, so how often do you polish your helmet, and which of your 2 helmets is the most shiny? Firstly, hi Creaky, you accentless bastard, and secondly, yes, yes, and yes. Have you ever started a reaction video and then decided that the video maker has so many screws loose that continuing would count as mocking the afflicted? I decided to answer this one as well as a similar one previously for a different reason. I don't cover people I think are profoundly mentally ill at all. I both don't see the point, and I think it would be unnecessarily cruel. Now, that's not to say that no one I cover doesn't have something going on with them. I personally have lots of things wrong with me. But if I believe them to be mentally competent enough to stand trial, they should be able to stand up to a bit of piss-taken criticism. I have, however, been sent a few videos of people who are very obviously not with it. And I just asked the people who did that, don't do that. I might play a bit of a cunt on the internet, but I'm not actually that much of a piece of shit. Thank you very much. What was the inspiration for your avatar? Knights are left from Dark Souls. Praise the sun, motherfuckers. What is your favourite episode of Dragon Ball Z Abridged? Jesus, where did someone come in with the hardball questions? Christ. A single episode is hard to decide on. There are so many awesome ones. But I would have to say episode 52. There are just so many awesome moments, and they just show how good the writers at Team 4-Star had gotten at that point. It's really great stuff.
Next time, why don't you remember your place like the rest of them? And wait for Goku.
Do you believe there is a strong correlation between religion and nutters? Not strictly. Religion is currently too pervasive to come to any specific conclusions on that, but I do think religion is a fantastic way to excuse shitty behaviour, so it's not uncommon to find people who act like assholes for God. Whether or not they're crazy is neither here nor there. What is the appropriate torture for someone who uses whiskey in a mixed drink? I don't know, probably just get them more whiskey, because it's not like something I would do with aforementioned Pepsi Max all the time. No. Who is the real Sir Sick? I realise you portray a character for our entertainment, and I appreciate your witty, sarcastic style of telling people to fuck off, but who is the real dude under the mask? I picture a big kid playing in the living room with his kids, toys scattered as far as the eye can see, but am I wrong in my assumptions? That is not too far off, although switch the toys out for Vimeo, James. I am too old and too fat to play on the floor anymore, but yeah, I'm not someone who believes in big kids as a rule. You just stick to who you are and enjoy the things you like. Or you do as the boring assholes tell you and become one yourself. And I just ain't about that. Life is too short not to enjoy the things you like. So, do you read Tintin to look hip and intellectual, or Asterisk because funny pictures make you laugh? I'll be honest, I only picked this one out because I have not read either of those things since I was 8 years old, but thanks for the blast from the past. I also never understood how anyone liked Tintin. If there was a character who exemplified a piece of white toast to me, it was him. Do you think QPR will ever get promoted to Premier League? I don't know, man, but did you see that ludicrous display last night? It seems your content is more generally aimed at crazier claims. While I'm relatively new, this leads to my question. Why not go after the more respected people in those fields, particularly in Christianity, such as William Lane Craig, Frank Turek, Mike Winger, Trent Horn, etc.? Now, I appreciate that you're new, but I've always found this a strange one. I have covered both Mike and Frank, definitely, and I'm pretty sure I've covered Billy Bond Craig too. No idea who Trent is, but yeah. And the idea that anyone would respect them is just kind of ludicrous to me. Frank is categorically a moron. William isn't anywhere near as smart as he pretends to be. Mike uses smugness as a replacement for a personality. And again, I don't know who this Trent is, but I'll bet he's a dick. What is your favourite dinosaur? I know this is kind of a generic answer, but the T-Rex. T-Rex is a cool man, an absolute bona fide classic. Plus, if you're feeling bad about yourself, you just have to imagine one making a bed. Some multi-soul questions here. Do you think we have a soul? No. Do you hope we have a soul? I am indifferent. Are you afraid of not having a soul? Having a soul might lead you to have to exist forever, and fuck that. Do you hope that when you die there is some type of afterlife? If there isn't, I'll be too dead to know. If there is, hopefully it's not one of the stupid ones. Have you ever recorded a video drunk? I used to do that exclusively, and then I started giving a shit about making good content and being correct. Now I do it occasionally, but you couldn't tell since I always sound a bit drunk. Why don't you think Jesus existed as a person? Because the evidence for his existence is poor at best and non-existent at mostly. How often are you demoralized by the content you have to watch in order to make a video response? Never really. I'm more demoralized when I can't find something to talk about. I genuinely doubt that the world is more moron than it is not, and there are lots of people working hard to make sure that they don't fuck it up for the rest of us. All in all, things could be a lot worse. What is your favorite anime? One Punch Man. Saitama is a fucking boss, not just because he's strong, but because he appreciates the strengths of those around him, even though they are so comparatively weak. He's awesome, love him. Thoughts on short people? They make for excellent drinks tables and or replacement Pokemon. Wait, Mrs. Sick is telling me that they're all sexy and smart, and she can't help but emphasize that's not because she is one of them. Why do you think young Earth creationists are so adamant that the Earth is 6,000 years old? Because biblical literalism is a hell of a drug. Where do we send whiskey donations? Fingers crossed, by the time I publish this video, I will have set up a PO box, since so many people have offered to send me all sorts of things, and I should really pull my finger out of my arse on that. So, below, hopefully. Kane or Raziel? I love Raziel to bits, but Kane, he's the fucking man. Played by Simon Templeman for starts, and he just gets it all done. Would love to have that story finished one of these days, but I'm not going to hold my breath. And finally, to finish off, the greatest response to my original request for questions. You aren't the kind of YouTuber we latch onto because of your sex appeal and charming personality. People latch onto you because of your content. Respectable, but it means we don't really care about you personally. Mate, this video and the hundreds of comments that I didn't even get to kind of prove that painfully wrong. And yeah, I just hope that if you see this, you're as embarrassed as I am for you. But thank you all for taking part, whether that be by watching, asking questions, doing a whoopsie, or having engaged with anything I've ever made. And before we finish, I just got another question from Sir Slick, an extremely attractive person I've never heard of or met before, and certainly isn't me in sunglasses. Dear handsome, famous, and good at the sex person, I have all this money I don't know what to do with. Is there any way that I can throw it at you so you can spend it improving your channel, feeding the small people in your house, and of course, endless amounts of whiskey? Wow, what a great question. One of the best ever. You can help me by buying merch on my store, sending me money every month through Patreon for ambiguous rewards, becoming a channel member for slightly less ambiguous rewards like badges and emojis, and one-off PayPal donations too. All will be linked below, and all will help keep this channel alive into the future, and maybe one day we will hit some other stupidly high milestone. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.